Hey, Jason Aarons here. I've got some photos from my trip on the Appalachian Trail doing some section hiking from Springer Mountain to Neels Gap. I actually started up at the top of the falls. I'd actually hiked the falls previously with my kids and kind of picked up where I left back off. The High Shoals Road all the way to Neels Gap Road. Really a beautiful place. Here I am coming up Springer Mountain and came past some clearings where an aircraft had crashed in the 70s and the family had placed a marker. Met some really nice folks that were from Mississippi, Jackson, that were headed up the trail. Bumped into some people in a clearing eating lunch in their REI camping chairs. Just a really nice day. I'd kind of been planning this trip, or planning a trip. Backpacking. This was my first backpacking adventure. Watched a lot of gear videos on YouTube. Picked up a Garmin. Got a 85-liter Osprey pack, a lightweight sleeping bag. I did buy a Clark's hammock and took that with me. I regret that. I should have brought a lightweight tent instead. It would have been smaller volume. A lot of lessons learned on this trip. But overall, had a beautiful time. It was a beautiful time of the year to be out in the North Georgia mountains with the leaves changing colors. Ran into a guy on the trail here. He was off to the side, had his stuff sprung over a bush, and he asked me if I was scared of bears. I told him no. He said that he showed me this huge knife and said if he saw a bear, this is what he was going to do to it. I asked him where he lived. He said here. I realized he was kind of out of his mind, so I kept on moving to toward the Springer Mountain summit. And passed a couple this one shelter on the way. Looked rather interesting, but I kept on moving. I knew dark was coming at 6:50, and it was getting late in the day. I wanted to make sure I got to my area and got everything set up. So I made it to the top of the mountain. There's a plaque. This is actually where the AT trail starts. The other one is the approach trail. It's a blue blaze. There's this plaque here. There's a logbook on the back side. So I did get a chance to sign the logbook. There's a guy at the top talking about his through hike. Really great stories. Fortunately, I couldn't spend a lot of time up there listening to him. Some of the other hikers I'd passed had came up and he started talking to them. I congratulated him for his accomplishment of through hiking, and realized I kind of needed to get to the Stover Creek shelter before dark. I didn't want to stay on the Springer Mountain shelter. I'd heard a lot of bad things about it, and that Stover Creek was a whole lot better. So I kept on moving. There's my logbook sign in for the kids. It's behind the plaque there in a little drawer that slides out. There's logbooks. And also, if you get lost in the woods or something, the police come look at the logbooks, figure out where the last place was you were. Coming down Springer Mountain, it's pretty rocky. There's a parking lot in the back side. If you ever want to go visit it, it'd be a great place to park, and then or even section hike from Stover Creek on to the next U.S. Forest Service Road 42. So I went through this Three Forks area going down. I actually somehow I was using my GPS. It's kind of funny. You see that you're 400 feet from a shelter, and then you start getting further away and further away. The trail often follows the ridge lines, so when you view a map and a topo map, you realize that maybe it's straight in front of you, but you can't go straight down the cliff to get to it. So you have to maybe do an indirect route to get to something. So quite often a Garmin would show, you're right next to it. But this is the creek that you passed over. I did fill my water at a creek before this. This is the Stover Creek shelter. Really beautiful. When I arrived, there was two guys there. I asked permission to enter their area and join them at the campfire, set my stuff up. They were waiting on some other family members. Turns out they were from Asheville, North Carolina. It was the Strimple family. That was the sign that I showed them to go, the Strimple 429. Apparently, I saw that, figured it was a message for somebody, took a picture of it thinking I'd Google it later, not realizing it was one family telling another family what time they were had passed that point. So it was pretty ironic. But the rest of their clan showed up. They told horror stories about how they passed that same guy with the machete. He got the trail name earned of Freddy. So it was kind of funny. Apparently the two girls from Mississippi decided to keep on moving too. They weren't going to hang out with Freddy at the Springer Mountain shelter. So it ended up being a rather large party with quite a few people there. The Strimple family there from Charleston had ended up bringing REI camping chair. I had thrown mine back in the trunk of my car, realizing that my Geico 85-liter Osprey pack was just too big. But watching them chill out in the chairs made me realize that next time I needed to bring it. One of the guys there had a mini jam box. He had a great playlist. I was really enjoying the night. It was getting cold. We were all tired. We had lots of stories to tell. You know, it was kind of funny. Mice on the cables got into some of my stuff, but we slept the next night. Kind of figured out where they were, direction they were headed. Realized their pace was about the same as mine as I bumped into on the trail, and ended up camping with them the next couple nights at different spots. You know, you really want to hike your own hike, get away from people. I stayed that one night in that shelter. The rest of the time I was planning on just staying in on the trail or off the trail. I wasn't going to spend another night in a shelter. I just wanted to be able to say that I'd slept in a shelter, and Stover Creek did that. But I do, you know, the shelters usually, the fires usually where you get to meet some nice people and enjoy. So they mentioned they were stopping at Cooper Gap. So I decided that would be a good place. You know, my thought is there's strength in numbers, and if there was some sort of bear that was going to eat me, he'd at least get a couple other people to snack on as well before we ran him off. And usually when the bears hear noises, they go away. So at the campfires, we usually are pretty loud and talking. We're climbing Sassafras Mountain. One of the guys, Ryan, had a dog named Silver Bell that liked to run up and down the trail. Really neat, but try and hike your own hike. Maybe I'd catch up with the Strimple crew at some water spots and stuff. I was going to meet him for water at the Hawks Mountain Shelter. I ended up overshooting it by about a half mile. I realized on my GPS that you know, I was getting further away. Here's Cooper Gap, the photos of setting up camp. Interesting story. They actually had set some rocks around a campfire. They made their own campfire at Cooper Gap. It's kind of where some roads converge for hunters, and I guess somebody dropped an ammunition round, and we must have set the campfire on top of it. Something exploded about 9:30, 10 at night. Ash went everywhere, sparks went flying, landed on their REI camping chairs. Nobody was really close to the fire at that point, which is probably a good thing. But I'd never seen quite a pop and ash going everywhere like I had. It had to have been some sort of ammunition round, you know, bullet, shotgun shell that exploded in the ground from the heat of the campfire on top of it. So I did continue onward from Cooper Gap. It was a cold night. A warm front came in on Wednesday. It kind of warmed everything up. At that point, I've been eating a bunch of MREs and was sick of them. I was excited to get to the next spot where I actually had some Mountain House meals prepared. I tell you, at night the forest definitely comes alive. It becomes a zoo. Every twig snap, everything you hear. I thought we heard hyenas. Turns out they were probably just a certain type of owl that was making noises. Leaving Cooper Gap and heading up Justice Mountain was pretty tough. You know, I think the plan was to camp at Liss Gap. Justice Creek was beautiful. The Gooch Mountain Shelter. Saw some really great spots for what I thought would be camping, but it turns out someone else pointed out that it'd make a really great bear shelter. So this is the Gooch Mountain, as I recall, the Gooch Mountain Shelter. And then past this was some of the great camping spots. So I can see parking at U.S. Forest Service Road 42 and doing some hiking up here with the kids to some of these really amazing views. The plan was to stop at Liss Gap, but we just couldn't find a spot to put a tent or to hang, you know, from a tree. It was all rocky in there. We ended up continuing to what's called Ramrock Mountain. Really was some pretty steep inclines leaving here. So when you're going up, you're obviously going a lot slower. I did realize this second night sleeping that the Neo air pad under me in the hammock made it so much warmer. It was pretty cold Sunday night, Monday night. But once I put this pad under me on Tuesday night, definitely definitely was a whole lot warmer, but the Clarks weighed a lot. The volume of the pad was a lot, so I'm gonna next time it's just gonna be an ultralight tent and a X-Lite sleeping pad, which the volume of it's like a quarter of what the other one is. These are some of the views, headed toward Ramrock Mountain. You run along the ridge line, go over the top. Lots of great photos from up here on top Justice Mountain. Leaves are just starting to change. Everything's not quite in full color yet, but it was still pretty. Here we got to the top of Ramrock Mountain, and I got my Clark's hammock set up, and I was exhausted at this point. Gone about 16 miles, and really beautiful from the top of Ramrock. We ended up setting up tents, and it was a little close in. I would have liked a little more space, but there wasn't much room at the top of there. But the view is absolutely gorgeous. We had plenty of time to collect firewood and get the campfire going. Again, camped with this Strimple clan, had a great time in conversation. At this point, I was having a lot of Tylenol, a lot of aspirin, just a little bit sore. I probably need a little bit more training, but at this point, the Strimple crew, two of them decided to run to the grocery store to get some beer and wine. Apparently their car was parked about 2 miles away. They ran the whole thing, drove to the store, ran all the way back, and got there before sunset. I couldn't believe they brought back beer and wine for the night. Had a lot more stories around the campfire. Had a really good time. At that point, they'd been asking if I wanted to join them in a cabin on Thursday. I'd kind of resisted. I really wanted to stay on the trail and not deviate from my plan. But I was pretty sore and really appreciated them offering that up. I was stubborn, kept saying no thanks, and wanted to keep going. But I thought maybe if I got off the trail, I was admitting a little bit of defeat. But I realized my body was tired. They kept talking about the hot tub, cooking some hamburgers. Told them I'd join them if I could sleep on the floor. Honestly, my hammock outside would have been great. I didn't bring a whole lot of cash on me, just thinking I didn't need any money. I left it in the car in the wallet back at Neels Gap. So around 9 o'clock at night, I ended up finally saying, yeah, I'll go with you, and thought it'd be a good time. We were enjoying each other's company. As we headed off toward Woody Gap, where their car was in the morning, it was a short walk. Met some southbound thru hikers that were telling some really good stories. They were slamming back a bunch of beers at 10 in the morning. Somebody's parents, I guess, was showing up at spots and providing supplies and food and stuff while they did their hike, and got some pretty funny stories out of those guys. They were green blazing it the whole way. So here we are coming up to Woody Gap. Some really beautiful pictures from Woody Gap. So this clan from Asheville that I've been kind of trailblazing with, they got a family photo here, and then they snuck one with me in it. And then we went back to this cabin, sure enough, off the trail, and lit up the fireplace. They had a hot tub going. It was pretty nice. I was pretty exhausted at that point. I needed a 0 day, I guess as they call it. Thought I was going to do the 4 8-mile days and be out of there, but we ended up doing 10 to 12 miles the first couple days, and I was ahead of schedule that I could actually sit back and relax. Here's the brothers joining around the fire. The youngest brother, I guess, joined that day as well. Funny story is he lives right across the St. Mary's River, so we enjoyed some good night company. Got back on the trail Friday morning and started heading from Woody Gap up to Blood Mountain. Definitely got tougher the further along we got, but some really beautiful views. It's mostly downhill from Woody Gap to the summit. Once you get to Blood Mountain, though, it's pretty much uphill on the backside. My calves were had been rested a little bit, but trust me, this was a pretty good workout on the calves. Amazing the different types of hardwoods that you see. Some sections may be oak, some sections may be some pine, some may be other types of wood. Some really great pictures. This is up Big Cedar Mountain down to Lance Creek for a water fill up. Some great photos here. I don't know why I took a picture of my feet. Passed by the Woods Hole shelter. Definitely is a long ways off the trail. Didn't go all the way down to it, but did stop for water. Really not a lot of water flowing out of it, but went ahead and filled up my my hydration pack. Never actually saw the Woods Hole shelter because it's so far down in the hole, so to speak. This is actually it looks like a bear paw print. I also noticed some bear scat as I was walking around Big Cedar Mountain. Lots of little creeks like this to fill your water bottle. Really pretty views. Kind of hard to get a good camera picture through the trees. Really a beautiful day with the weather in the upper 70s. All right, we're heading on toward Blood Mountain. It's slowly going to be more and more uphill. Some more water sources. Signs pointing toward Neels Gap. And we stopped for water. This is actually the Woods Hole water source is in the background. Make that fill up. Never quite made it to the Woods Hole shelter. It's just too far back in the woods. I was tired. I didn't want to walk all the way down and walk all the way back up. Okay, so here's actually the Woods Hole Shelter sign. It's down that trail path. Took that after I came back up it. Alright, we're moving on to Blood Mountain. Up the steps. And lots more steps as we head up toward Blood Mountain. There's some camping sites on the back side of Blood Mountain. And more steps up. Pile of rocks. Lots of steps. Continuing up Blood Mountain. I guess one of the more famous shelters is the shelter at the top of Blood Mountain. You know, it's a stone building, kind of primitive. I can't imagine sleeping in it. The wind must blow pretty well, and apparently the windows don't close. It's rather primitive. I wouldn't be surprised if people just don't even go outside to pee. But the views up top of the shelter are at the rock at the top of the shelter are really, really beautiful. Lots of zigzagging back and forth to get to the top of Blood Mountain. The trees start to thin out and you got little scrub trees like these. And before you know it, you're at the top of Blood Mountain, but it is a rather, I think it's like a 600-foot climb. Kind of first thing you'll see is this building. And there's a big rock to the right of it. You climb up top of the rock and you got some pretty good views. I did take a couple pictures of the inside of the Blood Mountain shelter. That fireplace is actually bricked in, so you can't use it, which is somewhat of a shame. I just can't imagine sleeping in this. It just doesn't look comfortable. Hey, there's some of the views from top of Blood Mountain. Quite a few people up there, even for a Friday. You can string a hammock somewhere up there. You can find a camping spot. A lot of people, like I said, end up camping, especially I guess in the summer at the top of Blood Mountain. I just laid on the rock and enjoyed the sun shining on me. And here's the last picture of the Blood Mountain Shelter, and then we start heading down it to the Brian Reese Memorial Trailhead parking. I did take a piece of Blood Mountain with me, so you'll see me carrying that to the car, and I'm going to carve AT onto it. And overall, I had a great time. Really enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed the photos as well. my little piece of Blood Mountain that came home. Elevation graph of my 48-mile hike, and there's just miles per hour. Surely that can't be right. I don't think I did 8 miles an hour. Maybe I was running down